Hello ladies and gentlemen, and everyone above, below, or in between. Welcome back, and today is going to be a completely different episode. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about our close and immediate history, as in, like, say, the early 1990s and such. Around about the first Gulf War that I remember America engaging in. For my own lifetime or whatever. I was like a wee little guy, like 10, 11, 12 or whatever. And I'm not going to be talking about me or whatever. I'm going to be talking about pretty much just some observations that I had. Alright, this is like Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Desert Shield, and then it was Desert Storm. And Saddam Hussein and things like that. I remember after that conflict was done with, the troops came back, and there were two things that I noticed. And the first thing that you noticed was a lot more folks were carrying, and they weren't. I don't recall anybody being decked out like what you see in the photo here. I don't recall anybody being decked out like this. Like, this actually looks like a pretty sweet setup right here. I don't know about that lower gun. That looks a little too low, but, whatever. They weren't decked out like the Matrix movies or whatever. They weren't going to be shooting up a bunch of guards in a marble building. Let's just put it that way. No, you just started noticing everybody was carrying a little bit more, you noticed it in places like the grocery store, and that didn't mind you so much because you're on your feet. You noticed it in places where you're dining, and you started, instead of just the cop over in the corner with his back to the wall, you started noticing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 patrons are carrying, and it's not first thing in the morning before a hunting expedition. You know what I mean? Yeah, you started noticing at some of the sporting events, like maybe the basketball game, or like the high school basketball game, or the little league games and things like that. Where the guy's holding the camera, and then off to the side you see the cell phone or the pager. Then off to the other side, is that a buck knife? Is that a wrench or something? And then you're like, oh no, that's a piece. Yeah, you started noticing a lot of folks were armed. A little bit more than usual. It took a little bit of getting used to, and this is even living in a southern town, folks. Where you see guns all over the place. Even in the grocery store, you saw a gun cabinet right there next to the cigarettes, and just before you get in line, you got your deer hunter camo jackets with your red hats on a rack, just as you're checking out, just in case anybody that's going out hunting or whatever forgot. Even in the fish bait shops, you'd see ammo stacks on a shelf behind him, and of course he had them underneath the desk at all times. He just liked having that nice display of all the different types of ammunition that he had, and he had them stacked in such a way that it didn't interrupt the window that the light was pouring in on. So it just looked all nice and organized. But yeah, like, guns were just everywhere. People carried, and it was, after the end of that full Gulf War, you started noticing people were carrying even inside churches, and that was the first thing that kind of caught me off guard, to be 100% honest. But like I said, it takes some getting used to, and even the pastors, or the guys leading the church, even they'd be saying, oh, we got people carrying while practicing the choir. Well, okay, everybody in choir, we're going to be practicing in rooms from here on out, and real simple, out of sight, out of mind. And no, I'm not going to be having any talks about any of that subject. This is pretty much the changes that we noticed. That's the first thing that you noticed. The second thing you noticed after the end of that Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and Saddam Hussein and that occupation, that conflict. Second thing you noticed was the troops didn't bring back anybody from any other nation. Quite often heard stories about that. where guys go overseas in a conflict, and then they bring home, a couple of them bring home different folks from different countries, or whatever, or maybe they got married to somebody while they were overseas and they bring them over. None of that happened on this one. None of that happened on this particular occasion. That was the second thing you noticed. After 9/11, we had another occupation. Boys went out and searched for bin Laden. And when they came back with a whole lot more gun laws passed. So not a whole lot of them, you notice not a whole lot of folks were carrying. And after Obama got in office, they started bringing in some Syrian refugees, and some of them happened to be some of these Islamics. They started bringing those folks in by executive order, and by our politicians' order, just the same as they started taking our guns away from us. And I thought that would be kind of strange, ladies and gentlemen, because folks that went over there and had to deal with them, they saw things that they didn't want to see. They saw things that helped them lose a bit of weight, so to speak. And of course, if you talk to those guys, they'll say, "Oh, it's just the sun. It's the sun. It just melts off all the water weight." I guess you could say that. Or maybe they saw some really disgusting stuff that from a completely different culture that they didn't like none too much, because they saw some really, you saw some people getting decapitated, or you saw some people getting set aflame just for being Christian or whatever, or you saw folks dealing with their livestock in a completely unheard of and unorthodox way. Let's just keep things clean, huh? As clean as we possibly can, but it's kind of hard to stay clean and try to sort of keep everything PG when you see heads mounted on the fences of folks, and how those heads came off. It wasn't by a guillotine, folks. It wasn't any nice way. It's just completely different culture, completely different world. Just sand and rock, and all these disgusting things happening, and on top of that, you got a conflict and all that. Yeah, but for whatever reasons, our government decides, yeah, let's just bring all those guys over here to our town, huh? And by the way, so all you law-abiding citizens, we're going to take your guns away from you. Kind of makes you think, folks. Kind of makes you think, because why on earth would anybody feel the need to be strapped in a church? And that thought just stuck out in my head for a long time, folks, because like I said, I was like 10, 11, 12, and this church wasn't any church. This was a chapel, and it was on an Air Force base. My old man was in the service, right? So you have all these levels of security, yet still you need to be packing some heat when just going to the choir practice. It's not even a packed house. That was a question that I had in my mind, and I didn't ask him anything. I didn't challenge him or didn't bother, because there are things that maybe I'll understand later when I find out, when I'm ready for it, right? Well, I don't, not to sugarcoat things, but we actually have had some terrorist activity out here after 9/11, and internet being the internet, we get to see what folks do over there in all these Islamic territories, what they do with the infidels, what they do with the folks that believe in different things. And we got exposed hardcore, full time. And with these new terrorists, they're not going after big giant buildings, they're not going after power station, they're not going after water supplies or anything like that. They're killing people. And they're going into restaurants, they're going into stadiums, they're going into concert halls, they're going into dance clubs, things like that. Yeah, they're going to wherever there's a massive amount of people. And strangely enough, our government decides, hey, we're going to pass more laws so that you guys can't be on the even playing field as the lawbreakers. And guys, I hate to break it to you, but I mean that's not cool. That's not righteous. All right, and you guys really need to consider that whenever you start seeing gun control measures or bullet control measures on your ballot, things like that. And I hate talking about politics, folks, but I mean, like straight up, whatever happened to, you know, just leaving this stuff to the professionals? Because those guys, when they got back from the first conflict, I'll tell you another thing that I noticed. They were very quiet. They were listening to everything. They were listening to the sounds of their people. They were, you know, a lot of them bought a motorcycle, and I asked one of them why a motorcycle and not a car, and they were like, I want to smell the free air. I want to see the free land, you know. They wanted to take in and breathe in as much of this country as possible. They love this place, man. They love their people. I find it kind of strange that the government that we have today decided, no, we're gonna take some rights and privileges away. Don't worry, everything's gonna be just fine. And then we got a bunch of people getting killed by terrorists because they keep bringing over a bunch of these immigrants from other nations in thousands and thousands of numbers. And that's pretty much all I'm going to be talking about, folks. I'm just going to leave it to you like that. So you can start seeing this stuff on your ballot, you know. Start thinking. Why is it up to us, the regular folks that don't deal with this stuff? And why is it not left to the professionals? Why are you bringing in all these immigrants to vote too, when we don't know if they love this country or not? Some of them are just here for, you know, some of the welfare, some of the benefits, some of the promises that our current establishment has promised them, huh? Anyway, just a thought, folks. Fox Gibson signing out. Good luck to all. Peace.